The 2025 Milwaukee flood represents one of the most significant hydrological events in the recorded history of the city of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and it carries far-reaching implications not only for the local community but also for understanding broader patterns of extreme weather events in urban areas. Historically, Milwaukee has experienced occasional flooding due to its geographical location along Lake Michigan and the presence of multiple rivers and streams, such as the Menominee, Kinnickinnick, and Milwaukee rivers, which traverse the city and its surrounding neighborhoods. These waterways have traditionally played an essential role in the city's development, serving as trade routes, sources of freshwater, and centers of industrial growth. Over the decades, Milwaukee has implemented various flood control and management measures, including levees, stormwater drainage systems, retention ponds, and channelization of rivers. However, the 2025 flood surpassed previous events in intensity and impact, revealing both the limitations of historical infrastructure and the heightened vulnerability of modern urban populations to extreme meteorological phenomena. From a historical perspective, Milwaukee's floods have typically been associated with seasonal rainfall, snowmelt, and occasional storm surges from Lake Michigan, yet none had approached the magnitude experienced in August 2025. Past records indicate that floods in the 20th and early 21st centuries, while disruptive, rarely caused citywide emergencies or significant long-term displacement of residents. In contrast, the 2025 event was triggered by a convergence of extreme weather patterns, including unusually high atmospheric moisture content, rapid storm movement, and prolonged rainfall over a concentrated time frame, which overwhelmed the city's drainage capacity. This combination of factors not only produced immediate flooding but also highlighted vulnerabilities in urban planning, emergency preparedness, and public awareness. The historical significance of this flood lies in its role as a wake-up call for both local authorities and broader environmental policy planners, emphasizing that traditional assumptions about flood frequency and intensity must be reassessed in the context of a changing climate. Furthermore, the 2025 Milwaukee flood has symbolic and educational significance beyond its immediate physical impacts. Historically, floods have served as catalysts for urban improvement and policy reform, prompting cities to invest in infrastructure, community awareness, and sustainable water management strategies. In Milwaukee, this flood event is expected to shape future planning, highlighting the need for innovative solutions such as green infrastructure, permeable pavements, expanded retention areas, and early warning systems. From a social and cultural standpoint, the flood has also underscored the importance of community cohesion and resilience. Residents' collective experiences of displacement, property loss, and adaptation to sudden environmental change serve as lessons in human vulnerability and resilience, offering valuable insights for sociologists, urban planners, and environmental scientists alike. In this way, the historical context of the 2025 flood is not only a record of a meteorological event but also a broader narrative about human interaction with natural systems, the evolution of urban infrastructure, and the societal implications of extreme weather events. Moreover, understanding the historical significance of the Milwaukee flood requires a recognition of the city's unique geographical and climatic characteristics. Milwaukee's proximity to Lake Michigan creates both opportunities and challenges. The lake moderates seasonal temperatures but also contributes to localized heavy precipitation events, particularly when warm, moisture-laden air masses collide with cooler air over the region. Historically, these meteorological conditions have produced occasional flash floods, localized street flooding, and disruptions to transportation networks. The 2025 flood, however, exceeded historical patterns in both scope and severity, covering wide swaths of the city and affecting neighborhoods that had not experienced flooding for decades. As a result, historical comparisons with previous floods highlight the extraordinary nature of this event, both in terms of meteorological intensity and social consequences. From a policy perspective, the 2025 flood is likely to be studied as a pivotal moment in Milwaukee's environmental management history. It provides empirical evidence for evaluating existing flood control measures, stormwater infrastructure, and community preparedness initiatives. Historical analysis of prior floods, combined with contemporary observations from the 2025 event, can inform future planning, budgeting, and legislation aimed at reducing vulnerability and enhancing resilience. Academically, the flood offers a case study for disciplines ranging from environmental science to civil engineering, urban planning, public policy, and sociology. Students and researchers examining the event can gain insights into the interplay between natural forces and human systems, the effectiveness of mitigation strategies, and the societal importance of disaster preparedness and response. In conclusion, the 2025 Milwaukee flood is historically significant not only because of its immediate physical impacts but also due to its broader educational, societal, and policy implications. It represents a defining moment in the city's history, highlighting the need for enhanced flood management strategies, climate-conscious urban planning, and community resilience. By placing the 2025 event in its historical context, it becomes evident that extreme weather events are increasingly shaping the trajectory of urban development and public safety in Milwaukee and similar cities worldwide. This flood will likely be remembered as a turning point in how cities confront the challenges of climate variability, infrastructure limitations, and societal adaptation, serving as a crucial reference point for future generations seeking to understand and mitigate the risks of natural disasters. The 2025 Milwaukee flood occurred in early August, specifically on the 9th and 10th, marking one of the most intense and concentrated rainfall events in the city's recorded history. During this short time span, Milwaukee experienced an extraordinary accumulation of precipitation that far exceeded normal seasonal averages. Meteorological data recorded by local weather stations indicated that the city received approximately 14 inches, equivalent to 36 centimeters, of rainfall within a 24-hour period. This volume of rainfall is historically significant, as it represents one of the highest single-day precipitation totals ever observed in Milwaukee, surpassing previous records from both the 20th and early 21st centuries. The intensity and concentration of rainfall over these 2 days were critical factors contributing to the widespread flooding that affected residential, commercial, and public areas throughout the city. Such an extreme weather event is unusual for Milwaukee, where the average monthly rainfall in August typically ranges between 3 to 4 inches, highlighting the exceptional nature of this flood. Meteorologists analyzing the event noted that the rainfall was not only heavy but also highly localized, with some neighborhoods experiencing higher totals due to microclimatic variations. Influenced by topography, urban infrastructure, and the proximity of water bodies such as Lake Michigan, the spatial distribution of rainfall played a significant role in determining the severity of flooding in specific areas, as drainage systems in certain neighborhoods were unable to handle the sudden influx of water. Rainfall intensity, measured in inches per hour, peaked at rates that overwhelmed stormwater infrastructure, contributing to rapid surface runoff, street flooding, and river overflow. For example, the Menominee River, one of Milwaukee's major waterways, experienced a sudden rise in water levels due to both direct rainfall and runoff from surrounding areas, demonstrating the direct correlation between precise rainfall statistics and flood outcomes. Understanding these exact measurements is essential for hydrologists, urban planners, and disaster management professionals to assess risk, evaluate infrastructure performance, and plan for future events. In addition to the total rainfall, the temporal distribution of precipitation also played a critical role. Meteorological reports indicate that the heaviest rainfall occurred during a concentrated 12-hour period on August 9, followed by continued but slightly reduced precipitation into the early hours of August 10. This sustained period of intense rainfall prevented natural absorption and delayed drainage, causing both surface flooding and elevated river levels. Historical comparisons show that Milwaukee has experienced heavy rainfall events in the past. However, the 2025 flood stands out because the rainfall was both extremely intense and sustained, creating conditions that the city's existing infrastructure was not designed to handle. As a result, streets, basements, and public facilities became submerged, prompting immediate emergency responses and temporary displacement of residents. These dates and rainfall measurements provide a clear, quantifiable framework for understanding the scale and impact of the flood, allowing city planners, policymakers, and researchers to develop data-driven strategies for mitigating future risks. The precise statistics of the rainfall also carry educational significance. Students and researchers studying meteorology, hydrology, and climate science can analyze the data to understand the mechanics of extreme weather events, the role of atmospheric conditions in producing heavy precipitation, and the interaction between natural systems and urban landscapes. For example, the concentration of rainfall over a short period can lead to flash flooding, particularly in areas with impervious surfaces such as roads, parking lots, and rooftops, which limit natural water absorption. By examining the exact amounts of rainfall, the rate of accumulation, and the affected time intervals, scholars can model potential flood scenarios, assess vulnerabilities in urban design, and propose improvements to stormwater management systems. Furthermore, the dates and rainfall statistics are critical for emergency management and disaster response documentation. Detailed records allow authorities to track the sequence of events, evaluate the timeliness and effectiveness of response efforts, and identify areas that require infrastructure improvements or additional resources. For instance, by correlating rainfall intensity with reports of street flooding, basement inundation, and river overflow, city officials can prioritize areas for drainage upgrades, flood prevention measures, and community preparedness initiatives. This level of data-driven planning is essential for ensuring public safety and reducing the socio-economic impact of future extreme weather events. From a climatological perspective, the 2025 Milwaukee flood exemplifies trends associated with changing weather patterns. Experts have noted that such extreme rainfall events are becoming more frequent due to increasing atmospheric moisture content, shifting jet streams, and broader climate variability. Precise rainfall measurements, such as those recorded on August 9 and 10, 2025, provide empirical evidence of these trends and serve as a benchmark for comparing future events. Researchers can use these data to study correlations between urban flooding and climate change, analyze long-term shifts in precipitation patterns, and recommend strategies for cities to adapt to increasingly unpredictable weather. In conclusion, the exact dates and rainfall statistics of the 2025 Milwaukee flood are foundational for understanding the scale, impact, and significance of this extreme weather event. By documenting that approximately 14 inches of rainfall fell over a concentrated 24-hour period on August 9 and 10, 2025, we gain critical insight into the mechanisms of flooding, the vulnerabilities of urban infrastructure, and the importance of data-driven planning and preparedness. These statistics serve not only as a historical record but also as an educational resource, providing valuable information for students, researchers, urban planners, and policymakers. Accurate measurement and analysis of rainfall during extreme events like the 2025 Milwaukee flood are essential for improving community resilience, enhancing emergency response, and preparing cities for the challenges posed by a changing climate. The 2025 Milwaukee flood had an extensive and devastating impact across a wide range of neighborhoods, highlighting the vulnerability of urban areas to extreme weather events. The floodwaters affected both densely populated residential zones and commercial districts, creating immediate challenges for infrastructure, transportation, and public safety. Among the most severely impacted neighborhoods were Wauwatosa, Bayview, Riverwest, and the historic Third Ward, each experiencing varying levels of inundation based on their proximity to rivers, elevation, and stormwater drainage capacity. In Wauwatosa, one of the city's western suburbs, the Menominee River overflowed significantly, causing widespread residential flooding. Homes in low-lying areas were particularly susceptible, with basements and ground floors submerged under several feet of water. Streets became impassable, and many residents had to evacuate to emergency shelters, relying on local authorities and humanitarian organizations for temporary accommodation. This neighborhood's experience highlighted the challenges faced by suburban areas, which often lack the density of emergency services found in central urban areas but can suffer equally severe damage due to natural topography and proximity to rivers. Bayview, a historic lakeside neighborhood, also experienced substantial flooding, particularly in areas close to Kinnickinnick River. The neighborhood, known for its mix of residential homes and small businesses, saw both commercial properties and homes affected. Streets were submerged, traffic was halted, and essential services such as electricity and water supply faced temporary disruption. Residents reported that water entered ground-level structures rapidly, leaving little time to protect belongings. In addition to physical damage, local businesses faced immediate economic consequences, as temporary closures and cleanup efforts disrupted daily operations. The impact on Bayview exemplified the intersection of residential and commercial vulnerabilities during an extreme weather event, demonstrating the cascading effects of flooding on both personal and community livelihoods. In Riverwest, a neighborhood situated closer to central Milwaukee, flooding primarily resulted from stormwater runoff combined with river overflow. Urban infrastructure in this area, including older storm drains and sewer systems, struggled to accommodate the sudden influx of water. Streets transformed into temporary rivers, and public transportation services were interrupted, preventing residents from commuting or accessing essential services. Historical data suggests that Riverwest had experienced occasional flooding in the past, but the 2025 event exceeded prior records, flooding areas that had previously been considered safe. This neighborhood's experience emphasized the importance of maintaining and upgrading stormwater management systems, particularly in urban areas with older infrastructure and dense populations. The historic Third Ward, a cultural and commercial hub of Milwaukee, also suffered from flooding during this event. The area, known for its warehouses, art galleries, restaurants, and boutique shops, experienced water intrusion in both basements and ground floors. Streets were temporarily closed, and pedestrian movement was restricted due to rising water levels. The economic and cultural impact of flooding in this neighborhood was significant, as businesses faced property damage and revenue loss during the recovery period. Additionally, the flood highlighted the challenges faced by urban centers with mixed-use development, where residential, commercial, and cultural activities coexist within a compact space. Ensuring resilience in such neighborhoods requires a combination of flood-proof design, emergency planning, and community awareness. Beyond these neighborhoods, many other areas of Milwaukee experienced varying degrees of flooding. South Milwaukee, Shorewood, and Glendale reported localized flooding in low-lying regions, affecting both homes and public infrastructure. Streets, parking lots, and public spaces were inundated, while drainage systems became overwhelmed. Reports indicated that some neighborhoods, even those not directly adjacent to rivers, experienced flash flooding due to heavy rainfall accumulation and runoff from impervious urban surfaces. These conditions demonstrate the widespread geographic impact of the 2025 flood, highlighting that urban flooding can affect multiple areas simultaneously, irrespective of their proximity to natural water bodies. Analyzing the affected areas also provides insights into socioeconomic factors influencing flood vulnerability. Lower-income neighborhoods often experienced more significant damage due to older housing stock, limited flood-proofing measures, and proximity to natural waterways or industrial zones. Residents in these areas faced greater challenges in evacuation, recovery, and accessing emergency assistance. Conversely, some higher-income neighborhoods with elevated infrastructure or flood-mitigating designs were better protected, although they were not entirely immune to damage. Understanding these disparities is critical for urban planners and policymakers to design equitable flood prevention strategies that protect all residents. Emergency response within the affected neighborhoods involved coordinated efforts between city authorities, police, fire departments, and humanitarian organizations. Evacuation routes were established, shelters opened, and resources distributed to residents impacted by the flooding. These measures were particularly vital in areas like Wauwatosa and Bayview, where rapid water accumulation posed immediate risks to life and property. Community awareness campaigns also played a role, informing residents of potential hazards and providing guidance on safe evacuation and protection of belongings. The effectiveness of these interventions varied based on neighborhood layout, infrastructure, and communication channels, emphasizing the need for tailored response strategies for different urban contexts. The 2025 Milwaukee flood also revealed patterns related to urban geography and water flow. Neighborhoods situated near rivers, low-lying zones, or areas with poor drainage infrastructure experienced the most severe flooding. Conversely, elevated areas and neighborhoods with modern stormwater systems were less affected, though they still faced challenges from surface runoff and localized drainage issues. This spatial understanding is essential for planning future mitigation measures, such as constructing retention basins, improving stormwater drainage, elevating critical infrastructure, and implementing green urban design practices to absorb rainfall more effectively. In conclusion, the 2025 Milwaukee flood had a widespread and multifaceted impact on the city's neighborhoods, affecting both residential and commercial areas. The severity of flooding varied according to geography, infrastructure quality, and socioeconomic factors, demonstrating the complex interplay between natural events and human settlements. By studying the affected neighborhoods, researchers, urban planners, and policymakers can gain critical insights into vulnerability patterns, infrastructure needs, and effective emergency response strategies. The experiences of neighborhoods such as Wauwatosa, Bayview, Riverwest, and the historic Third Ward provide valuable lessons for enhancing resilience, protecting communities, and preparing for future extreme weather events, ensuring that cities like Milwaukee can better withstand the challenges posed by climate variability and urban flooding. The 2025 Milwaukee flood had profound and widespread effects on residents, homes, businesses, and infrastructure, highlighting the vulnerability of urban communities to extreme weather events and the cascading consequences that can follow. Thousands of residents across multiple neighborhoods faced immediate threats to life and property as floodwaters rose rapidly, particularly in low-lying areas and regions adjacent to rivers and streams. Many families were forced to evacuate their homes on short notice, seeking temporary shelter in schools, community centers, and facilities organized by humanitarian organizations such as the Red Cross. The sudden nature of the flooding left little time for preparation, and residents often had to leave behind valuable possessions, vehicles, and personal items that were subsequently damaged or destroyed. The psychological impact on residents was significant, as many experienced stress, anxiety, and trauma associated with sudden displacement, loss of property, and uncertainty about the safety of their neighborhoods. These human experiences underscore the importance of integrating social and mental health considerations into disaster preparedness and response planning. Homes across Milwaukee experienced varying levels of damage, ranging from minor water intrusion in basements to complete flooding of ground floors and structural compromise. Older housing stock, particularly in neighborhoods such as Riverwest and Bayview, was especially vulnerable due to aging foundations, inadequate waterproofing, and proximity to natural waterways. Many residents reported damage to electrical systems, plumbing, and household appliances, creating both immediate safety hazards and long-term repair challenges. Insurance claims surged in the aftermath of the flood, revealing both the financial strain on families and the necessity for accessible and comprehensive coverage to mitigate economic losses. In some cases, the flooding resulted in the temporary or permanent displacement of families, altering community demographics and increasing reliance on emergency housing and social support systems. Businesses also faced significant disruptions, particularly those located in commercial corridors and historic districts such as the historic Third Ward. Floodwaters entered basements, storage areas, and retail spaces, damaging inventory, equipment, and infrastructure. Restaurants, galleries, and shops were forced to close temporarily, leading to revenue loss and challenges in maintaining employees and operations. The economic ripple effects extended beyond immediate property damage, affecting supply chains, customer access, and long-term business viability. Small businesses were particularly affected due to limited financial reserves and dependency on daily operations for income. The flood thus highlighted the intersection between natural disasters and economic vulnerability, emphasizing the need for targeted support and recovery programs for affected commercial entities. Infrastructure throughout the city was severely tested by the 2025 flood, revealing both strengths and weaknesses in Milwaukee's urban systems. Streets and roadways were submerged, making transportation difficult and disrupting emergency response efforts. Public utilities, including electricity, water supply, and sewage systems, experienced temporary outages and overloads. The city's stormwater drainage system was overwhelmed by the sheer volume of rainfall, leading to surface flooding and backflow into basements and public spaces. Bridges and other transportation infrastructure faced structural stress, while public transportation services were suspended in affected areas. The flood also highlighted the vulnerability of critical infrastructure such as hospitals, fire stations, and emergency services, necessitating rapid adaptation and resource allocation to maintain essential services. Beyond immediate physical impacts, the flood had secondary consequences on public health and safety. Standing water created conditions conducive to waterborne diseases, mold growth, and contamination of drinking water supplies. Residents were advised to avoid contact with floodwaters due to potential exposure to sewage, chemicals, and other hazards. Emergency response teams worked to distribute clean water, provide sanitation supplies, and educate the public on safety measures. The health implications of flooding extend beyond the event itself, as long-term exposure to water-damaged structures and disrupted sanitation systems can affect vulnerable populations, including children, the elderly, and those with pre-existing health conditions. The 2025 Milwaukee flood also underscored disparities in resilience and preparedness among different communities. Neighborhoods with robust infrastructure, higher economic resources, and proactive community engagement were generally better equipped to respond and recover. In contrast, lower-income areas with aging housing stock, limited access to emergency resources, and proximity to natural flood zones experienced disproportionate impacts. These disparities highlight the importance of equitable planning and investment in flood mitigation measures to protect all residents, regardless of socioeconomic status. Recovery efforts following the flood were extensive and multifaceted. Cleanup operations involved pumping water from flooded homes, clearing debris from streets, and restoring essential services. Local authorities collaborated with humanitarian organizations, volunteers, and contractors to support affected residents and businesses. Financial assistance programs, including grants, low-interest loans, and insurance payouts, played a crucial role in facilitating rebuilding and restoration. Community engagement initiatives, such as neighborhood meetings and educational workshops, aim to increase awareness of flood risks, promote preparedness, and strengthen resilience against future events. From an educational perspective, the impact of the 2025 Milwaukee flood provides critical lessons for urban planning, disaster management, and climate adaptation. The experiences of residents and businesses illustrate the human and economic dimensions of extreme weather events, while the performance of infrastructure highlights areas for improvement in design, maintenance, and emergency response. Policymakers and urban planners can use these insights to implement flood-resistant building codes, enhance stormwater management systems, and develop comprehensive disaster preparedness strategies that address both physical and social vulnerabilities. In conclusion, the 2025 Milwaukee flood had far-reaching consequences for residents, homes, businesses, and infrastructure, revealing both the immediate and long-term challenges posed by extreme weather events in urban areas. The event emphasized the importance of proactive planning, resilient infrastructure, community preparedness, and equitable support systems to mitigate the impacts of future floods. By studying the multifaceted effects of this flood, communities, researchers, and policymakers can gain valuable insights into the complex interactions between natural hazards, urban environments, and human society, ultimately fostering greater resilience, safety, and sustainability in the face of environmental challenges. The 2025 Milwaukee flood prompted a large-scale, coordinated emergency response involving city authorities, state agencies, and humanitarian organizations to mitigate the immediate dangers posed to residents, infrastructure, and the broader community. As floodwaters rose rapidly across multiple neighborhoods, local emergency management teams activated established disaster protocols designed to protect life, provide immediate assistance, and maintain order during the crisis. One of the earliest and most critical measures involved issuing timely evacuation notices and alerts, leveraging multiple communication channels including local news broadcasts, social media platforms, automated messaging systems, and emergency sirens to ensure that residents were informed of areas at highest risk. The rapid dissemination of accurate and actionable information proved essential in reducing casualties, guiding individuals to safe zones, and coordinating movement to emergency shelters, particularly in neighborhoods like Wauwatosa, Bayview, and Riverwest, which were severely affected by overflowing rivers and rapid rainfall accumulation. Local authorities, including the Milwaukee Police Department and Fire Department, played a central role in the emergency response, conducting rescue operations, directing traffic away from flooded streets, and ensuring access for medical services. Rescue teams utilized boats, high-water vehicles, and other specialized equipment to reach residents trapped in homes or vehicles, highlighting the importance of preparedness, training, and resource allocation in urban flood scenarios. Additionally, first responders worked in coordination with utility companies to manage hazards related to electricity, gas, and water systems, preventing secondary incidents such as electrocution, fires, or contamination. These emergency measures were vital for protecting both residents and response personnel, demonstrating the complexity and scale of managing natural disasters in densely populated urban areas. Humanitarian organizations played a critical role in supporting affected populations during and after the flooding. The American Red Cross, local non-governmental organizations, and community volunteer groups established emergency shelters in schools, community centers, and public facilities, providing safe accommodations, food, clean water, and medical care to displaced residents. These shelters were equipped to handle varying needs, including those of families with children, elderly individuals, and people with disabilities, ensuring that vulnerable populations received necessary assistance. The coordination of humanitarian aid involved careful logistics, including the distribution of emergency supplies, organization of volunteer efforts, and management of temporary housing assignments. The collaboration between government agencies and humanitarian groups exemplified effective multi-stakeholder response strategies, emphasizing the importance of community resilience and preparedness in minimizing the human toll of natural disasters. Communication and public education were integral components of the emergency response during the 2025 Milwaukee flood. Authorities and organizations disseminated safety guidelines to residents, advising them to avoid contact with floodwaters due to potential contamination from sewage, chemicals, and debris. Public service announcements included instructions on evacuation routes, locations of emergency shelters, and precautions to prevent injuries or exposure to health hazards. These efforts not only facilitated immediate protection but also contributed to long-term community awareness and preparedness, reinforcing the value of education and clear communication during extreme events. Residents were encouraged to remain informed through official channels and to follow instructions carefully, highlighting the collaborative role of individuals and institutions in disaster management. The emergency response also involved healthcare services, with hospitals and medical facilities adjusting operations to accommodate patients affected by flooding or injury. Temporary medical clinics were set up in shelters and community centers to provide first aid, vaccinations, and treatment for waterborne illnesses. Mental health support was another essential aspect, addressing the psychological stress and trauma experienced by residents who faced sudden displacement, property loss, or uncertainty about their safety. Social workers, counselors, and volunteers offered guidance and counseling services to help individuals cope with the emotional impact of the flood, reflecting a holistic approach to humanitarian assistance that encompasses both physical and mental well-being. Logistical planning and resource management were key challenges during the response to the Milwaukee flood. Coordinating emergency supplies, transportation, and personnel across multiple neighborhoods required careful assessment of priority areas, real-time monitoring of flood conditions, and flexible allocation of resources. Relief organizations worked closely with city authorities to ensure that supplies such as food, clean water, blankets, and hygiene kits reached the most affected populations promptly. Additionally, volunteer networks contributed to cleanup, distribution of aid, and provision of support services, demonstrating the importance of community engagement in enhancing the effectiveness of emergency operations.